Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Movie Screeners Club podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Falk. The Movie Screeners Club is brought to you by Designing Hollywood Productions, in association with Gardena Cinema. If you want to win the chance to have your short film screened in a huge theater and the opportunity to be interviewed on our podcast, please submit your film today on our website, themoviescreenersclub.com.
So I'm Annette Bedrossian. I have been animating for a very long time. I'm not going to age myself, but for a very long time, I'm mostly a 2D animator. And me and Jeremy met in grad school quite a few years ago. And we just instantly clicked on the way we like to approach projects, and we started working together. And I basically expanded upon my passion of animation and storytelling because of Jeremy and his passion for it, and his amazing talent in being an amazing, he wears many hats. He's really good at a lot of things he does. But definitely stop motion is something that we share as a passion, but Jeremy's hands down one of the best. And so yeah, we just started working together, and I don't think there are many projects in the last 7 years that we haven't worked on together. So this kind of just one of us will come up with a project or a story and we'll discuss it. And this is kind of what happened with this. It just kind of, I came up with the concept. I'm a huge fan of Edgar Allan Poe and Tim Burton and all things creepy. And I love Shakespeare too. Yeah. And I love Shakespeare too. So it was kind of like I had been working this out in my head for the longest time, and I finally got it down on paper at first, and then typed some stuff up, and then finally turned it into a script, sent it over to Jeremy. He put his 2 cents into the script, and yeah, it was that's how it kind of started.
All right. Well, yeah, well, I'm Jeremy Mowery. I've been making movies and animating since I was in high school, way back when. And yeah, like Annette said, we met in grad school. And there's Ziggy right behind me. My 7-year-old.
I've been making some cool
Yeah,
animation.
He's a mate already. So, but yeah, I've been I guess making movies, directing, editing, of things for quite a few years. But I've kind of fallen in love with stop motion. I worked on a bunch of short films, indie features, music videos, a couple commercials. So I'm always staying busy on that. And then I also teach at Woodbury University, animation and visual effects. Yeah, I do a lot of fun things.
Nice.
I forgot to mention I teach too. Yeah, I teach too. I teach high school animation and visual art, and I also have directed a lot of music videos and live action, produced a lot of live action shorts and all of that stuff.
What inspired this story? Obviously, Edgar Allan Poe, maybe a little old. It seemed to me like it was a classic. I mean, it really is kind of that classic, like the initial, oh, your lover has died at war. I was like, okay, this is just gonna be kind of it's timeless. It really is, but it's gonna be one of those timeless stories that is really nitty gritty. And I wanted to know really why stop motion? Why use that medium that's so challenging to tell this story?
Well, for when I wrote the script, when I was writing the script, all I could think in my head was we need to do this as a stop motion project. And it's because of so many reasons. Number one, like I said, mentioned earlier, we're both really passionate about animation. And stop motion is one of those mediums where you can make an actual world just come to life, like in real, like for real, like you can touch it, it's tangible. It's not off in the ether in the computer somewhere, you know? And I think I wanted to challenge us to do a period piece, because we hadn't really done anything like that. And uh, you know, we had an opportunity to bring on some of Jeremy's students as interns through Woodbury University, and they're talented, and just bringing all these new technologies into play, of like, you know, 3D, like turning our sketches, our original sketches from my studio. So I have a studio, mostly predominantly 2D animation with my partners, which are also friends with Jeremy. And we did all the preliminary visual development work, and Jeremy's students, our interns, turned them into just beautiful 3D, sculpted, computer sculpted imagery. And then we got to use like 3D printing technology. And then like it was just, and then like hands-on practice, like, you know, painting these things, molding, making molds for them, and just all these little intricate things. It just, it was a beautiful thing to kind of do. To It was like we mixed all types of storytelling into one film. And that was, I think, one of the main reasons I was like, we have traditional 2D drawings, we have 3D work, we have fabrication, we have stop motion puppets, we have actual live action, you know, lights, and all of that stuff. And it is just, it was a mixed media effort for sure.
You're still sculpting things, although on the computer instead of by hand, at first, and then we also included mold making and casting, in order to duplicate some of our tombstones, and also do things like embed magnets into the puppets' faces. Um, but yeah, it's another step in the process, and that's one of the things I love about animation in general and about stop motion, because it's basically every art form known to humans all combined into one.
Mm-hmm.
So and I love adding with every project Annette and I have worked on. I think we keep, you know, just adding more steps to our process, and it becomes longer and more complicated. But then the production value gets higher and higher, and it just becomes more fun to me anyway.
That being said, I mean, challenges, was there any like scene that was particularly challenging to shoot or to animate?
Ooh.
I think for me, it wasn't challenging, but like the clouds,
Interesting.
the raven flying through the clouds. So like, we're getting an upshot, right? Like, and so, but everything on set, because the camera is, you know, on a tripod in a regular kind of uh, eye level.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to kind of mimic, as if we are shooting up in the sky. And so the crazy rigging of our clouds, and then animating the clouds moving out of the way, and as if they're coming, not only off screen but getting closer to the camera. I think that was, they were hanging from wires, and you can't really control kind of, you know, how much you can move something. So I think that was, it was fun, but it was for me, that was a little bit, you know, challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It did take an extra day of setup that we hadn't quite anticipated,
Really?
because yeah, because we eventually, especially with the first shot after we did the clouds from above, then it's like, oh, there's just not enough, and we need clouds from the side and clouds below, and on a slider like on a camera track, and so it was just a lot of different, and we had to layer them and give separation, to give it more depth. And yeah, the other scenes all had sets that we had planned out and fabricated the sets, and it was all, you know, pretty straightforward. But yeah, the clouds did take you like an extra day to figure out all the setup, so that in that sense it was a little interesting, because that was one type of set, like, if you will, that we hadn't done before. We hadn't done anything way up in the sky. So it was fun to figure out though.
So I've never even attempted to to animate anything with stop motion, but I love how it looks. Is it a really collaborative process, or can you kind of lock yourself in a room and do it by yourself? Is it as good, when you try and do it alone, or you need kind of a team?
Everything's always better with the team, but stop motion is one of those things. It's definitely doable. There are many times, many projects that Jeremy and I have worked on where I, have to leave, or, he would continue working even when I left, and um, sometimes it's faster when it's just you by yourself.
Really?
And a lot of times, like I'm, it's a great thing to give younger people, beginning animators, an experience like this to work and actually get to animate um, something of this kind of caliber where they're not working by themselves, they're working with a team. And it is a nice thing to have more hands on deck, especially during fabrication and all of that stuff. And I'm sure Jeremy can attest to that. For me personally, I think sometimes, especially on other projects where it's just been Jeremy and I, or towards the end of the filming this project or shooting this project, a few of the weekends was just him and I. And obviously it goes a little bit faster when we're not trying to show anyone how to do something, when we're just doing it ourselves.
Mm.
But yeah, I'll let Jeremy piggyback off of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, stuff you can definitely do it both ways. I mean, you can lock yourself in the closet, do everything by yourself, no problem. But I think it is a lot more fun, and in most cases, it's just better to work with the team. And it also varies project to project and which part of the process you're in. Because I find during fabrication, things go faster when you have a big team, because you can divvy up all the work. Like, oh, you're making trees, you're doing gravestones, you're doing the set, and everything gets built faster. And then when it comes to animation, unless you have space to have separate sets and multiple setups, it usually goes faster when there's just one animator there just focused. Because in animation, there's a couple different methods. There's one called pose to pose that they do more in 2D and 3D, where they set up the key poses, which are like the extreme poses that characters get in, and then they go back and fill in all the in betweens. And that's not really practical in stop motion. We do what's called straight ahead animation, which you start at frame one and you just go in sequential order all the way to get to the last frame. Um, and when you're doing that, you really have to get in the zone and find a rhythm. And it really works better when it's just one animator just getting their mind in the right mindset and just plowing through all the frames. It does go by faster than when you have a bunch of people on set, which we did a few times. And I mean, sometimes that does slow down production, but depending on the scene, I mean, it can be helpful. I mean, when we started animating all the clouds, it was pretty fun because we had side clouds were on each of their own C stands, and clouds from above and clouds from below. So we had like a different person on each cloud, and like, all right, you swing your cloud this way and you go that way. And I was just at the computer using our software is called Dragon Frame. So we have, a software on the computer as well to help assist with the animation. So sometimes I can just be at the computer and direct, and in some cases that works out well, while in other cases it just makes the process a little slower. Um, but all in all, it's really fun, and I think better to work with the team for sure.
Mhm. When you guys co-direct, have you found that you split the responsibilities right down the middle, like you're both doing everything, or do you kind of divvy it up and you realize that, one of you a might be stronger suited in X, Y, and Z, and the other might be stronger in something else?
I think the way we work together, just in general, anytime we've worked on any projects, it's always a conversation that Jeremy and I have. Like, it's never like, oh, you do this and I'll do this scene. It's always like, what do you think if we take it to this, like the acting, right, or the camera work? And um, it's definitely more of a collaborative safe place to say whatever you want to say. Like we've never fought, we've never argued. Like it just, we explain our way, and then if there's a better way, let's do it that way. And a lot of times, just to kind of, in animation, like that, the animators are actors. Like we're just don't like being in front of the camera. So a lot of times it's fun when we're working together and we're trying to, even though we've shot reference video or something like that, sometimes it's like the intricate movements of, you know, the facial expression or the way we want their hand or head to move. And like we kind of like act it out between ourselves and say, hey, what do you think if we do this, you know, or what do you think if we do this, you know? And like it kind of I think being in a team that you are usually on the same page really helps. And um communicating and not being condescending, I don't know.
Yeah.
All good things.
Yeah.
I think when you work together for so long, you really, really kind of get into that groove, and obviously it's a safe space. You're just there to create art together, and you figure out the best way to do that.
Yeah.
You know. So stop motion as an art form is really detail oriented. Do you think that there are like some details that you want people to notice that maybe they won't notice on the first watch?
I mean, there might be some little, I don't know, hidden Easter eggs in the set that not many people will notice, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, or what do you think, Annette?
I think like a lot of pieces on the set, a lot of, so much blood, sweat, and tears went into making the smallest things, you know, like choosing a font for the letter and then like making it so tiny, and then like I practiced like dyeing paper to make it look old, like using coffee and then using a different type of coffee and then using a black tea and then using like a different type of tea, and like just, and then like just sending Jeremy a bunch of pictures of like tiny pieces of paper that were like just, you know, drenched in like some kind of brown liquid. And he's like, oh, that one looks good. Oh, that one looks good. So I think it's like those small things that people watching it are going to see that letter or the two letters like for a few seconds on screen, but like it took a long time to make those, you know. And or like the roses, one of our interns like hand crafted each rose beautifully, and like it took a long time, it took them a long time to do that. So I think the appreciation of the artistry of the whole of stop motion in general, like I've always been fascinated with it, and I've always loved stop motion. Like Leica is one of my favorite all-time studios. If they were more they were around when I finished animation school, I would have like in a heartbeat moved to Portland to go like work there, you know. But you know, I just think it's those little things that aren't even going to be on screen long enough maybe for some people to notice them, but that someone that appreciates the art form will. And I think that's what it, for me.
Actually, the one specific thing that I really had fun with for this project was that everyone in the crew and the cast, we all had our own gravestones in the cemetery. So pretty much all the names on the gravestones are us.
It was such a funny, like, great credit roll. At first I was like, where are the names? Oh, there they are. Oh, they're on the headstones. And I noticed a lot of like fingerprints on the clay, and I love that. I love that so much because it reminds you there's so much blood, sweat, and tears that goes into just creating the character. I mean, I think that it's just so cool, and it's so like admirable. I mean, it's amazing. And then my final question before we wrap up, how long was this entire process? Day one, day zero to the final day.
I think overall it was about a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, because we spent several months developing it with our core team, which was Annette and I, doing the script first, and then we brought in our other friends, Rafi and Sabahat, that are a part of Rat Studios. That's Annette and their 2D studio, and we all did design work and storyboards together, and then when we started fabrication was when we brought on some of the interns, and we basically fabricated each set, like one set at a time, and we'd fabricate a set and then animate, and then fabricate the next set and then animate. And yeah, that I think all the prep work was like 6 months or so, and then it took a year after that of fabrication slash animation.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
It's do you kind of, I mean, I guess that I lied. This is my last question.
Yeah.
When you start a new project, are you kind of like preparing yourself to be in it for over a year?
Definitely.
You know what you're getting yourself
Usually
into.
longer. I think
Yeah.
in any medium, any good story takes a long time to really work out, number one, the story, and then all the visual development, whether it's live action or animation. Um, it doesn't matter because you're gonna still have to design the character looks, the all of that stuff, all the little what the sets are gonna look like. And if you have a strong visual concept of the film, I think the rest kind of starts to fall into place. It's that core stuff, I think, that takes, and animation takes long. It's a medium that will, always take long if you want it done well. And so you have to be passionate about it. You have to really want to do a specific story, whatever it is that you're working on. You have to be all in because you are going to commit all your weekends, all your free time to this, project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, like, I mean, it definitely varies project to project. Some could take multiple years, but I kind of love that because I'm all about the adventure, and I don't I get more enjoyment out of projects that are longer and more complicated. It's always bittersweet when we're done with the project. So I just like all the stuff in the middle. So I really enjoy projects that take longer than a year or even more, because it's just a much bigger, grander, more fun adventure. And yeah, the ones that are really short are kind of over too soon, and I'm like, oh man, what
Yeah, like right when you start enjoying it, it's like
already
done,
done?
and you're like, let's do it again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no matter how bittersweet it is, I always, just move on to the next one. And then I'm like, all right, ready for another adventure.
Well, on that note, thank you guys so much. This was so great. I'd love getting to know you guys. Please come see Love Forevermore at Gardena Cinema on October 17th. It's going to be awesome. Thank you guys so much. The Movie Screeners Club is produced by Designing Hollywood Productions in association with Gardena Cinema. If you want to win the chance to have your short film screened in a huge theater and the opportunity to be interviewed on our podcast, please submit your film today on our website, themoviescreenersclub.com. This episode was sponsored by Smokebreak Productions. Addictively entertaining.